Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on social emotional learning and how to infuse a little bit of that as we approach the finish line of our school year. I don't know about you, but I know a lot of us are kind of at our very wits' end. It's been a really tough school year, and so I hope to give you some ideas here that are kind of light, but yet still really meaningful things that you can do in these last few days, weeks, or maybe you're already finished, and these might be things you look at for next year, but maybe in the last part of the school year. So I will be sure to get you out of here on time. So if I look over here, it's because I want to make sure I do that. We'll get you out of here by 4:30 Eastern. If you do have any questions, though, feel free to email me. My email is here, and I'd love to talk social emotional learning, project-based learning, any of those kinds of things. So feel free to hit me up afterwards if that's something that you'd like. So I'll start with our FAQs. The one we get most often is this going to be recorded? And the answer is yes. So if this is something you want to share with somebody later or check back at, later, just see if you missed something, that will come to you in an email, certainly by Friday, if not tomorrow. Also, all of the resources, all the lessons that I talk about, links to those lessons and everything that goes with them are all in this one document. And my friend Robin here is going to put that in the chat here so you can access it there if you'd like. But that bit.ly SEL finish line will take you to all of the resources. And speaking of Robin, you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today.
So Robin is here on the back end to make sure, if you have any technical difficulty or if you have a question for me, I won't see it while I'm talking, so she can answer that for you, or if we need to interrupt me, if it's like, we can't see you, it all froze or something like that. So she's here to help make sure the back end goes smoothly. So thanks, Robin. All right, we'll start off. I always like to get a little bit of a sense of who's here in terms of grade levels. So we'll do a quick poll here. If you can answer which of these best describes you, or whether you're K2, 3-5, 6-8, 9-12, or maybe you're an admin or some other kind of group that maybe teaches multiple of those, but curious to see who's here today.
All right, so I'm gonna give it a couple more seconds to roll in.
Perfect.
All right, so at the top, we have 33% admin or other, 22% for both upper elementary and middle school, and then 11% for both lower elementary and high school.
Okay, all right, so I'm kind of glad it skews right in the middle. I tried to pick activities that are kind of in that middle. Some of these might skew a little higher grades, some of them might skew a little bit lower grades, but hopefully everyone comes out with something that you can use. So that's super helpful, thank you. All right, I do want to tell you we are sponsored today by Blue Apple. These are projects that are project-based learning units, and they're really, really cool and take some of the time out of preparing those kind of project-based learning units that can take a lot of prep time. So if you're interested in project-based learning, and I'll touch on that a few places in this webinar as well, be sure to check those out, and you can get 10% off of those by using the coupon code webinar. So what we'll talk about very briefly, I just want to make sure probably you're familiar with this, but if not, that you know of the CASEL framework and their 5 areas of social and emotional competence. So I'll make sure I just introduce those in case you don't know them, but we'll spend the bulk of the time going through, I think I advertised 5, but I couldn't cut this many that I just had to get more in there. So we have 8 SEL lessons that are all designed something you can do right away. So I'll take you through all of those, hopefully as much as I can in the time. And at the end, I'll give you a chance to take a survey, and we'll pick a winner from that to win a Blue Apple project as well. So that's what we're in for. It's always funny because you want to start with why this is important, but I'm thinking people sign up for this webinar, they already think it's important. So I won't spend a ton of time, but in case you have to sort of sell this to somebody else, I always like to point out that, we talk about critical and creative thinking a lot as being skills that are in most demand sort of for future upcoming jobs that maybe we don't know about yet. But SEL is in there as well. If we look at these top 10 most desired skills for employment in the 21st century, you can see things like cognitive flexibility, right? Being able to change your mind, negotiation skills, service orientation, judgment and decision making, emotional intelligence, all of these, coordinating with others. Many of these things are those kinds of things that we need for social emotional learning to be, we need social emotional learning in order to be successful with those skills. So they're very clearly outlined by the World Economic Forum as things that are important as we prepare the next generation of workers and of problem solvers. But I think this year in particular, I don't have to tell you, right, has been really unique and even more of a demand, I think, for social emotional learning when we look at the pressures of the global pandemic and its impact on social emotional learning and how, the psychological impact that that's had, right? There's trauma, there's grief, there's anxiety, and the sense of normalcy that has just been completely disrupted. So I'll leave you to read the kind of research behind it, but I did want to at least point out that I think more than ever, SEL has to become a priority, and a lot of schools are making it a priority, which I'm really happy to see. So as I mentioned, if you're not familiar with it, CASEL is probably the leading organization on social emotional learning, and they have tons of great resources on their website. I encourage you to check it out. A link to their website is on that resource doc. But the part I want to draw your attention most to for today is their 5 kind of competencies that they highlight. And these are sort of areas to kind of, I think, when you look at a social emotional learning lesson, maybe align it to these competencies just to know, what kinds of things you're specifically working on, whether it's self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, or responsible decision making. And you'll see as I share with some of these lessons and I try to align them to these, you can make a case for something, being in several of those different categories, but it's always nice to at least have something delineated so that you're attending to all the different elements of social emotional learning. So let me get right into them. So as I mentioned, I'm hoping these are things that you can take right away and do. You'll see some of the ones at the end in particular are getting kids outdoors. I don't know about where you are, but here it's not a great day for outdoors. It's actually really rainy and like 50 degrees or something, which has me a little sad. But I know a lot of places you can get outside right now, and hopefully we will as well. So the first mini lesson I want to share with you may be familiar to you, and it's the Marshmallow Experiment. And I think it's best to kind of show a cute little video of this because who doesn't love videos of cute kids? But this was an experiment done in Stanford in 1972. And you'll see, they'll talk about the premise of it and you can see, I'm not going to play the whole video for you. I'm going to fast forward through some parts just for time, but the whole video is linked in the resource doc if you just want to chuckle. But I'll give you a playthrough of that now. I can find my cursor.
Okay, so here's the deal. There's a marshmallow. You can either wait, and I'll bring you back another one. So you can have 2, or you can eat it now. You can eat it now, or you can wait, and I'll bring you back 2. Okay? Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so I have one.
These are my favorite, these guys.
And here's the deal. You can either eat it now, or you can wait till I get back, and you can have 2. Okay? So eat it now, or wait till I get back, and you can have 2. And I'll be back then.
If we wait,
Yep,
just gotta make sure,
Or you can eat it now, whichever you want. Okay?
He's gonna wait. All right, for some reason I can't get my cursor.
I'm gonna go over there too. Are you gonna eat it? I got some people. Or we're still not gonna be. But if you wait until she gets back, she'll give you 2.
I like how they're just pretending like she's not eating it.
She still won't give you 2 because you ate it. So I didn't eat a single bite. So go show her.
All right, I'm gonna stop it there, and you can watch the rest of it. I'll give you the spoiler alert. She does, continue to eat it throughout the experiment, and then as soon as the teacher walks in, the little boy gives her right up. She ate it, he tells her. So, but I bring up this experiment because it's sort of an interesting, thing to do with students. And the study itself has some kind of a little bit of controversial results. The initial study did show they followed these students throughout, a few years, and they looked at them later. And those who were able to be successful in that delayed gratification showed lots of positive kind of outcomes compared to those that didn't, right? They were better students, they made better grades, they ended up making more money, had more friends, in better physical shape, and all of this stuff. Like I said, it's a little controversial because I think some folks have come back and said, yeah, I don't know if you're accounting for all the sort of socioeconomic factors that might be in that too. So I don't know how valid the actual study is, but I think we can all agree that the idea of delayed gratification is something our students definitely need to learn, especially in the age where you can just find answers right away. You're looking for, social media kind of instant gratification there. So teaching our kids ways to kind of get better at delayed gratification is something that's really important. So in order to do this with your students, if you have younger students, you may want to reenact this yourself. I think that could be a fun way to do this lesson. Or with older students, maybe you could do it. You do it with, I don't know, Talkie chips or something. Or maybe they could actually reenact it for a younger class. It'd be interesting. Let's see what happens with younger students. So those are a couple ways that you could do it. But I also want to point out what you can teach them from that, right? So you can talk about ways to improve your delayed gratification after you do this marshmallow experiment. So you can teach them to find ways. Obviously, the easiest one is distraction, right? So if they found, if they played a movie while the marshmallow was there and they're not just staring at the marshmallow longingly the whole time, that was a great way to help them get better at that delayed gratification. So what are things that you can do to distract yourself while you're waiting for something? If you can't distract yourself, another thing you can teach your students is about abstraction. So this is kind of a little more abstract, but what if instead of looking at that marshmallow just longingly and just imagining how it tastes, you're imagining strange things like, what would the marshmallow say? How many marshmallows would it take to fill this room? Get them thinking just sort of bizarrely about the marshmallow, taking the thing that they love about it kind of out of the picture and just thinking of it in different ways. That's an abstraction as a technique. And then the last way you can teach them is some sort of gamification, right? Whether this is, looking at the clock, and if it's been, every minute ticks by, you do a tally mark, or on a calendar, it's just a simple strategy of coloring in the days as you are working toward a goal. So that kind of something that shows you a visual tracking of where you are against that particular goal or thing that you're waiting for. So just a few kind of simple strategies that you can teach your students really at any grade level, even though the experiment itself, I don't know if marshmallows would work with high schoolers, although I'd be kind of interested to try. But I just like to bring it back to those CASEL competencies. And you can make an argument that many of these are in play here, but I particularly like self-management and responsible decision-making for this one. And also self-awareness, right? To understand, am I someone who this is easy for, or am I someone who this isn't so easy for? So that's the marshmallow experiment is the first one. I mentioned project-based learning is something we're also really passionate about. So I just want to point out something like this can also be a lead-in to, we use it for a project called 50 Years of Interest, where we talk about compound interest and how, if you delay your gratification and invest your money, how it can grow. So you can always make some interesting connections like that as well. All right, the second little mini lesson I want to tell you about is called Scout versus Soldier Mindset. Again, something maybe you've heard about it, maybe not. And I would start with a game that we have called Play Agree to Disagree, the game Agree to Disagree. And there's a link to this. And it's all these, you're probably familiar with these, images where some people see one thing, some people another, right? Or here, there's the Yanni versus Laurel, right? And there's links to all of those. So in this case, maybe you see here a young woman, or maybe you see an old lady. Maybe you see them both. So these are kind of fun little images you can use with students to realize we can all see things from different perspectives, and we're not wrong, we're both right, but we have different things that we're seeing. So I would play that game with our students, and then I would play this TED Talk, or maybe for younger students, you might summarize this for them, but this is about an 11-minute TED Talk, but I think it's a really great way to introduce this concept of scout versus soldier mindset, right? The soldier mindset is one where, you're basically defending your point of view at all costs. That's your focus, right? You are kind of shooting down other people's ideas. Versus the scout mindset, where you're really out there to look for the truth. You're willing to change your mind if there's something that goes against your views. So it's a nice objective way for someone to teach them about scout versus soldier mindset. And then if I was doing this with my students, I would then just sort of role play those different mindsets and maybe start with some easy subjects like, what's your favorite ice cream color? Ice cream flavor, and then kind of move on to something more controversial as to the level you feel appropriate, right? Maybe school lunches, school uniforms, banned books, mask mandates, right? As far as you want to take that, but have them practice those different roles and see how it better facilitates conversation and understanding with a scout mindset. So, and then again, ways to teach them to improve that scout mindset. In the TED Talk, she talks about these 3 things. So I'll just kind of point them out here too, and you can reiterate them with your students. The idea of being curious, actually genuinely wanting to know the truth, right? That's a great way to practice that scout mindset. Also being open, right? Being willing to change your mind if you hear new information that goes against something you previously thought. And finally, being grounded. And by this, she means like really not kind of tying your self-worth to whether you're right or wrong about something initially, right? But really being grounded in who you are and that you are, perfectly fine and wonderful human being, even if you don't have the right answer to begin with. There's also a soldier versus scout mindset poster in that resource document. So if this is something you like and want to reiterate with your students by putting it on valuable classroom wall real estate, you can feel free to do that or hand it out. So just kind of coming back to those competencies. This is one where I think self-awareness, social awareness, responsible decision-making all come into play. And again, you could make lots of different cases for different ones here, but I just try to point out the ones I think it most best aligns to. And again, there's a project called Take a Stand where the kids actually pick a topic that they are passionate about, and they take a stand on it, and they learn to debate respectfully using a lot of these scout versus soldier mindset skills. So you might want to check that out maybe for next year. All right, the third mini lesson I'll share with you, I call the gardener's son. So I would play this short clip. It's a video that talks about the history of germs, and in particular, it shares how, you may be familiar with the story of the milkmaids who weren't getting smallpox. And so an English scientist, English doctor, Dr. Jenner, he decided he would test this theory out that maybe the reason they weren't getting smallpox was because they were, in touch with the cowpox. So he took some of the cowpox gunk and he put it in the cut of his gardener's 8-year-old son. So it tells this story, which I think kids at any age can just be like, was that right or wrong? And goes on to tell you all of the kind of great things that have come from vaccinations since, but it's a real ethical kind of a moral dilemma there. I will tell you the second half of this video, this was made before COVID, so it feels really dated when they're talking about all these pandemics and they don't mention COVID, but the first 2 minutes doesn't have anything to do with that. So I would play this video and then just have some good kind of ethical conversations. It's a good chance to build those social emotional learning skills by touching on concepts and discussing concepts that are kind of hairy and grapply like this, right? Talking about was this decision right or wrong, and what standards might we use to judge that? Talking about might it look different today? Or what if it was his own son and not the gardener's son? Would that make a difference? So those are just a few discussion questions that you can bring up. But as you do that, you're learning how to talk to one another about difficult ideas. And so some other social awareness kind of competencies that you can bring into that are helping them sort of tune into nonverbal cues. So understand when something you said has maybe landed wrong, right? You see those nonverbal cues. So those are some things you can teach them. Also teach them to, listen to understand, not to make your point. That's really, really hard for all of us, I think, but so important if we do want to really improve our social awareness and our understanding of one another. And also to seek objectivity. When we talk about, how might that look different today, there are ethical boards in place for how we, treat animals, for how we do all sorts of things. And so where can we find objectivity like that to help us and guide us in these sort of ethical decisions? So I think we've done this with young kids and with high schoolers. It's, either way, there's just some really good concepts to grapple with, which is always, I think, a great thing to get kids talking about. And for this one, I happen to highlight social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision making. Again, you can make a case for several of them. And there's a project that goes with this one called Prevent the Spread that you might want to check out as well. And the fourth one is something we call Baboons Dilemma. And this is sort of a riff, kind of a kid-friendly riff on the prisoner's dilemma, if you're familiar with that. But essentially, this is sort of a scenario we give to the kids, and they have a choice to make whether they're going to cooperate with their classmates or betray their classmates. And what you do is you're going to show them this video or a slideshow that kind of introduces the scenario. And I'll let you look at that on your own. But essentially, they can either cooperate or betray. And then whatever they decide, they get a certain number of fish as a result, right? So if I cooperate, I might get 6 fish. And if you betray me, or if you betray, then, you get 6 and I get 0. Or if we cooperate, we get 3 and 3, etc. So you model how to play it. You're going to do it for 5 rounds. They're going to get different partners each time and capture their scores. So when they put those scores in, they're going to play those 5 rounds, and after that, they're going to have 25 rounds altogether, 5 partners, 5 rounds. Okay, so the whole thing takes maybe 15 minutes, which is always beautiful. But what's cool about it is that it demonstrates the power of cooperation. So once they tally up all those scores, it reveals a secret. If they had picked cooperate each time, where they each got 3 fish each time, so they end up with 6 points each time, they would have 75 points. They would have caught 75 fish. But the thing is, nobody ever gets 75 fish. Someone always decides to betray. And so it's a great way for them to see that looking out for yourself doesn't just hurt the group, it also hurts you. So it's just a fun little game. And like I said, it doesn't take a whole lot of time. And with younger kids, you might need to help them with the math a little bit, but the basic concept is there. All right, so again, aligning that to some of our CASEL competencies, just to kind of know what it is we're striving for. So I want to give you a quick chance to reflect here on which of these you might try. So we'll do a quick poll here. Do you think you might try the Marshmallow Experiment, Scout versus Soldier Mindset, the Gardener's Son, or Baboons Dilemma? Curious to see which of these you might want to try. We'll give it just a short few seconds more because I know we're getting close on time.
Yep.
They still rolling in?
They are a little bit, but yep, I closed it down. So it looks like 2 are the big front runners. So 71% Baboons Dilemma and 57% Marshmallow Experiment.
All right, very cool. The Baboons Dilemma is one of our most popular.
Yeah, the other ones probably would have gotten some love, but I think because we shut it down a little early, but all good out.
All right, cool. Thanks a lot. Okay, I'm going to run through these next ones super fast, but as I mentioned, some of these get the kids outside, which is a great time for that. So the next one is something we call STEAM Team, and these are all just sort of activities, kind of STEAM activities that require some level of cooperation. So kids are getting in groups, and we have 7 of these activities here. I've pointed out 3 here to highlight. There's an engineering one where they can engineer some stuff with eggs. It's always fun time. Pendulum paintings is another one of my favorites. Sensational prints, they're able to make sun prints without a ton of material. So these are things that just, you have to cooperate on and work together to do. So I wanted to point those out. And the cool thing about these is they are ready to go. So all 7 of those activities include the materials list, the criterion constraints, and directions for how to pull it off. So it's something that you can just click on that link, pick which of the 7 or all of the 7 you want to do, and you can get to starting those with your students right away. And again, anytime you're working together, you're able to work on a lot of those SEL skills. The 6th one is something that we call Naturexplore Scavenger Hunt. And the cool thing about this one is it gets them outside looking for things, right? So find something you might see in Australia. So they're like a little bit kind of tricky, like you're not going to find a koala, right, or a kangaroo, but we encourage them to think creatively. Might you find a rock? Might you find the sun, right? Some things that are going to be in both places. And so they have to write what they found, where they found it. But this is my favorite part, and why I call it an SEL activity is why I think my answer is right. Because some of them might be tricky and you have to justify them. So we want to encourage those sort of creative answers, whether they do this independently or in groups, but they want to make sure they can have that justification for the answer they found and encourage those conversations, especially if it's sort of a controversial or incorrect answer, right? So here's just an example of some of them filled out. And again, just kind of goes through many of those skills. Anytime you're working together, this helps you understand yourself, helps you understand how to interact with others. The 7th one, this one I really like to do at the end of the year, is to do what we call peaceful planters. And it's just a simple idea of let's just do something to, leave the world a little bit better place as we're leaving school. So just taking recycled, planters and making some growing some things in them. And the cool thing about this is you can just make so many parallels to social emotional learning in doing this that just come very naturally, right? As we're using recycled materials, you can talk about, rejuvenating yourself and what ways can you rejuvenate yourself. We can talk about, as the plants are growing, steady growth, and what does that mean for a human to have steady growth, and how do you accomplish that? What does the plant need to grow? What do you need to grow? You can talk about even something as simple as pride in appearance. We want to make something that looks nice, and we want to represent our school this way if you're going to put it out at the school, and you want to represent yourself a certain way. talking about the time it takes to take care of things, right? So many parallels, right? Everything you talk about in creating these planters, you could make a connection to taking care of yourself or taking care of your environment or your community. So those are just kind of a great way to have natural conversations about social emotional learning in that context. And the cool thing about this too is it's got a Padlet as a part of it, so you can kind of up like and down like any of the, or dislike any of the ideas that are up there. You can add your own ideas, so it's kind of like a little mini Pinterest board right built into this lesson that you can check out. So again, trying to align that to those CASEL skills. And the last one I want to leave you with is something called I See You. And this is a great way to leave the kids with that great sense of self and confidence about what people value in them. So it's really simple. And maybe at younger grades, you might help them with this, but I think with older kids, they can totally do this. You just write your name on a piece of paper. So there's my name. And then you kind of tape it up along the areas of your room, the walls, right? Then you're going to ask students to think about what they value most in each of their classmates. And as they do that, they're going to go around and look at, so when someone comes to the sign Tara here, they're going to think about what they value most in me and write it on that piece of paper. And so you kind of go around to everybody's and you get lots of questions. What if it's already on there? Well, you can say you can do a check mark, or you can say you have to come up with something else, or you can write it again and it just reaffirms that, you know, don't get too complicated, right? But you just want to communicate to that person what it is that you value in them, what it is that you respect in them, what it is that you see in them. That's why we called it I See You. And, you know, this is an example. We did this, I want to say, maybe 5-6 years ago. I still have this hanging on my wall because it tells me this is what my colleagues value in me. So if I'm sitting in a meeting thinking, what can I bring to the table? I go back to this sheet and say, these are the things my colleagues value in me. So these are the things that I need to bring to the table in this meeting. And same thing goes for our students. If they're working on projects together, these are the things that your colleagues, your classmates see in you. So it's a great way to leave them with a sense of self as they go off into the summer. So we'll do another quick poll. Let's see which of these things that you might try. The STEAM team, those 7 different activities that get kids cooperating, the Naturexplore scavenger hunt, the peaceful planters, or I See You. Let's see which one of these rises to the top.
All right, we'll give it a couple more seconds here.
You bet.
All right. So we have I See You at the top at 75%, followed by the scavenger hunt at 25%, and STEAM team at 13%.
Excellent. Okay, so I hope you can get out there with your kids and give them a sense of self to leave the end of the year with. Or if, like I said, if you're already done, these are also things that can be done at the beginning of the year as well. So I'm going to leave you just with a few final thoughts here. Here's just sort of a scope and sequence of those 8 different activities and how they align to those particular competencies. Again, if you want to make an argument that one hits something else better than another, I'm not going to fight you, but just know what it is you're going for. I think that's the key there. Oh, looks, I accidentally animated those. Okay, and then like I mentioned, a lot of times Blue Apple projects are a great way, project-based learning is a great way to really infuse social emotional learning. And these projects in particular always engage the kids in making the world a better place somehow. And that's how they infuse that social emotional learning piece. So I encourage you to check those out, maybe for next year, but that could be something you incorporate. And finally, if you like, this sort of content, we love to bring, professional development that's super relevant, not, something that you just wish you hadn't wasted your time on. It's really something we're passionate about as educators, making sure it's something that actually works for you. So if that's something that you are interested in, we would love to talk to your administrators and get into your schools, because there's nothing we like to do more. And I want to invite you to next month's webinar. It's on powerful strategies to motivate girls in STEM. My colleague Dawn, she's super passionate about this. She's a science teacher, has 2 girls of her own, who I know that she's really going to have some great content for this one. So be sure and sign up for that. And I just want to thank you again for your time. I don't know about you, but I'll share with you, I've been a little distracted today because I'm going straight from here off to my daughter's high school graduation. And I appreciate you joining me for this, and hopefully you have something exciting to do as well this evening. So when we stop here, there will be a quick survey that you can take. And if you take that survey, you will also be entered to win one of those Blue Apple projects. So we will let you know if you win one of those as well. And we certainly welcome any feedback on what would be most helpful in these. So please do let us know what you like, what could be improved, and what topics you want to see more of. So with that, I'll say goodbye and thank you very much. Maybe we'll see you next month. Thanks so much.